What if some of the things that make people feel financially successful are the exact things keeping them financially stuck? Not poverty, not low income, not bad luck, just ordinary decisions that look normal. A newer car in the driveway, a credit card with travel rewards, monthly payments that fit the budget. Everything appears stable, responsible even, and yet somehow years pass. Income rises, but wealth doesn't. That's a strange thing about modern personal finance. Many people aren't falling behind because they're reckless. They're falling behind while doing what looks financially reasonable. And that's harder to notice because when financial mistakes look like progress, they stop feeling like mistakes. And nowhere is that more visible than with car payments and credit cards. Imagine someone making $72,000 a year in the United States. Sounds decent, maybe even comfortable. After taxes, maybe they bring home around $4,500 a month. Now subtract reality. Rent, $1,700. Utilities and internet, $250. Groceries, $500. Insurance, $250. Student loan, $300. Now comes the car. Not a luxury car, just something normal. A $38,000 SUV financed over 6 years. Payment, $640 a month. Add gas, maintenance, registration. Maybe the true monthly cost is closer to $850. Now we're down again. Then there's the credit card. Nothing dramatic, just ordinary spending. Dinner out, streaming services, flights, clothes, a few "I deserve this" purchases. Balance carried sometime, paid down sometime, never fully gone. Maybe $6,000 revolving at 22% interest. Minimum payments make it feel manageable. Everything still looks okay. Nothing seems broken. This is how people can earn more than their parents ever did and still feel constantly behind. Because the problem often isn't visible in the paycheck. It's hidden in the structure. There's something psychologically seductive about financed living. Monthly payments create an illusion. They make expensive things look affordable. Not cheap, affordable. That distinction matters because people don't ask, "Can I afford a $38,000 car?" They ask, "Can I afford $640 a month?" Very different question. One is wealth thinking. One is payment thinking. Modern consumer culture quietly trains people to think in payment. Phones, cars, furniture, education. Everything becomes monthly. And once life is measured in monthly obligations, people start confusing access with ownership. Driving a newer car feels like progress. Using premium credit cards feels sophisticated. Upgrading lifestyle feels like success. But sometimes it's just expensive maintenance of an image. And that's different. Let's slow this down. Suppose someone finances a $38,000 car at 7%. Over 6 years, total paid, roughly $46,000, $8,000 in interest, and 6 years of payment. Now depreciation. Maybe that car is worth $18,000 by then, possibly less. Think about what happened. Paid $46,000, own something worth $18,000. That gap is invisible wealth destruction. But because it happened monthly, it never felt dramatic. Now, imagine instead driving a reliable used car and investing the difference, say $500 per month, at 8% annual return. Over 20 years, that's around $295,000. One payment decision. Nearly $300,000. Not because investing is magical, because compounding is quiet, just like debt is quiet. And often, people underestimate both. Credit cards add another layer, because unlike car loans, credit often feels rewarding. Points, cashback, travel perks, status. And those things aren't inherently bad. The danger is subtler. Credit can make spending feel painless, and when spending feels painless, behavior changes. People become slightly more generous with themselves, slightly, and repeated slight decisions become financial patterns. A $90 dinner becomes normal. A $300 impulse trip feels justified. A lifestyle rises faster than income. This is lifestyle inflation wearing a sophisticated suit. And because it often happens among educated professionals, it hides well. Sometimes very smart people are trapped by very ordinary consumption patterns, not because they're careless, because they've normalized them. This isn't really about math. It's about psychology. People don't finance things just because they don't understand money. They finance things because of emotion, security, identity, status, belonging. Driving an older car can feel like falling behind, especially when everyone around you upgrades. In many places across America and Europe, consumption has become social language. Cars signal competence. Neighborhoods signal achievement. Spending signals adulthood. People don't just buy product, they buy reassurance.
And reassurance often has monthly payments. That's why this is difficult, because these choices don't feel irrational when you make them. They feel normal, sometimes even responsible. And to be fair, the system rewards this thinking. Banks profit from financed lifestyles. Automakers want monthly payment buyers. Credit card companies want revolving balances. Entire industries are built around keeping manageable debt feeling normal. Notice the language. Not debt. Monthly payment. Not interest burden. Flexible financing. Not overspending. Rewards optimization. Words soften reality. And softened reality is easier to accept. That's why people can feel financially sophisticated while leaking wealth for decades. Now, zoom out. Imagine doing this for 20 years. Always a car payment. Always some credit card balance. Always lifestyle rising with income. No crisis. Just constant friction. Maybe hundreds of thousands lost in interest, depreciation, and missed investment growth. But there's another cost people miss: reduced freedom. Because obligations limit options. A high-income person with heavy payments can be less financially free than a moderate-income person with low fixed costs. That sounds backwards, but often it's true. Financial freedom is not always about income. It's often about how little your life requires to function, and that changes everything. Career decisions, risk tolerance, stress levels, retirement, time, even relationships. Debt doesn't just affect money, it affects optionality. And optionality is wealth. Something interesting happens when people start thinking differently. They stop asking, "Can I afford the payment?" and start asking, "What is this costing my future?" That question changes behavior. Financially intelligent people often don't hate cars or credit cards. They just see trade-offs more clearly. They know every payment competes with ownership. Every recurring obligation competes with investing. Every lifestyle upgrade has an opportunity cost, and opportunity cost is invisible, which is why most people ignore it. But wealth tends to grow where invisible things are noticed. That's often the difference. Not intelligence, awareness. The quiet behavior of wealth. Real wealth often looks boring, less financed, less urgent upgrading, less signaling. Sometimes the financially strongest people appear strangely unimpressive. Older car, modest apartment, no visible performance. And people underestimate them because society often mistakes consumption for success. But one spends to look successful. The other builds actual leverage. Very different game. One looks richer. One becomes richer.